1. This is about an experience that I, a 21-year-old man, had at a temporary job working at an event for Easter Bunny photos around half a year ago. I only remember it well because I doodled some of the experience. One of the days I worked, I was in the costume dancing around while my coworkers chatted with some guy who had stopped by. I couldn't see him very clearly, nor could I hear much, but I did hear something about him joking about hunting the Easter Bunny since he hunted occasionally, or often. I played it off like a joke because it sounded like one, by covering the bunny head's mouth to show surprise. 2 days later, I was dancing around out front while one of my coworkers was in the suit, and in comes a man who I think is Amish. He had a beard and no mustache. His outfit was a completely black suit with a tie and black scorpion pin with a blue decorative gem on it. He walked up and said something along the lines of, "You're the one in the Easter Bunny costume." After I expressed my confusion, he clarified he was the guy who joked about hunting the Easter Bunny. Oh, okay. That seemed rather normal for me at the moment. He was probably just chatty and recognized me by how I was dancing. We chatted a bit and I showed him some of my doodles. In turn, he began talking about how he was a beginner in tattoo art. He suggested giving me a tat himself after I mentioned being interested in them, which I thought was a joke. Cool, we were both into art. I let him give me his numbers on my paper, since I didn't encounter many other artists around here, partially due to being at home except for work. He had 3 numbers, his regular, his work, and an extra to build credit. It was a little weird now, but I was giving the man the benefit of the doubt. I'm pretty sure he couldn't be interested in me. We shook hands, and he ended up holding onto my hand after and bringing it to his lips to kiss the back of it, without asking first. Of note, my coworker mentioned he had a fedora on. I never noticed. Honestly, I should have guessed he was interested since a lot of people mistake me for a woman. I only recently started socializing more once I got myself to the point I was confident, so I was very inexperienced with social norms at that point. After the incident, I made sure to use sanitizer on my hand and throw away the part of the paper with his numbers on it. It gave me the heebie-jeebies for a day after that happened. My hand felt dirty no matter what I did, and to this day, I don't really like handshakes. Not much else to say. It was a weird encounter, and I never saw him again since I don't work in that part of town anymore. 1. My first encounter with Stitch should have given me enough red flags to avoid him, but it didn't. At our school's assembly regarding CPR in freshman year, I happened to sit next to him, and the first thing he said to me was, "Hey, are you gay?" I was super off-put for obvious reasons, because who the hell starts a convo like that? I told him I was actually trans, and he asked me why. That's not really an easy question to answer to someone you literally don't know. We proceeded to have a slow and kind of awkward convo, and the only reason I really engaged with him was because I had just gotten unfriended by my ex-best friend, and I was extremely lonely. I seriously would have befriended anyone, and Stitch came to me at the perfect time. To paint a picture of this guy, I was genuinely shocked that he was in the same grade as me. Full neckbeard, galaxy and anime-themed hoodies. Quite a bit taller than me, I'm 5'11", and overweight. And he always wore blankets over his backpack like a cape. Overall, he fit the typical neckbeard and super senior archetype perfectly, except he didn't smell that bad. Regrettably, he asked for my number after we chatted for a bit and I gave it to him. Hanging around with him felt very uncomfortable and surreal, and I began to realize I had next to nothing in common with him. One time, this group of guys walked by us in the halls and began picking on him, so he yelled something at them in Russian and ran off. He was into typical neckbeard stuff like gaming and anime and repeatedly told me his dream career is to be a Twitch streamer. One time he got 10 views in a stream and he bragged to me about it. He also, one time, made this weird half-joke about having nuclear codes and showed me something on his phone that I still don't really understand. Overall, I thought he was really strange and off-putting, but not necessarily a bad person. He told me he got diagnosed with bipolar, and I honestly thought he was just misunderstood, but then, as sophomore year went on, I learned more and more about him that made him out to be pretty creepy and somewhat predatory. Every time he saw me in the halls, without fail he would hug me. I would never hug him back, and it always made me very uncomfortable. But I didn't really know what to say. He would also say little things to me that felt kind of belittling and creepy. Like one time he offered to pay for my coffee and I denied, and he told me to stop being difficult. That doesn't sound that bad, but the tone of voice in which he said it felt so creepy. Like how a 50s husband would talk to his wife. Another thing is that all of the people he hung out with were either creepy, gross, racist, or all of the above. Me and my current friends avoid this group of people like the plague, as do everyone else. Stitch was no exception, thinking saying the N-word in the school group chat was peak dark humor. He is very white. The final straw in regards to having any sort of contact with him was when I found out he made an insanely creepy rape joke to one of my friends. I was never told what the joke was exactly, but I don't tolerate things like that. I already didn't like him at this point, but I finally blocked his number. I had blocked him once already the summer after freshman year, but I think he got a new phone and didn't notice. That day at lunch, he came up to me and asked why I had blocked him, and I didn't say anything. Thankfully, my saint of a friend who I was sitting with told him, "Dude, if she doesn't want to hang out with you anymore, leave her alone." And just like that, he walked away, and we haven't talked since. This year I've learned some new information about him from some of his ex-friends. He is currently dating a girl who I'll call Lilo for continuity's sake. Lilo is severely autistic, and is developmentally behind most people her age. In layman's terms, she acts very childlike and naive, and makes me fear that Stitch is taking advantage of her. Which I wouldn't put past him on the weird things he's done, and how one of his friends has essayed multiple people. I find the situation incredibly creepy, but I don't know Lilo personally, so I can't step in. I've also learned that he's made SA jokes to a multitude of other girls, so not really surprised. I hope you guys enjoyed this story of the first ever neckbeard I've ever met. I'm fascinated by people like him, and I'm grateful that I never turned out like him, even though I very well could have. I'm from a conservative Floridian town, and I grew up in the feminist wrecked era of YouTube. I saw him at the mall today with my friends, and he made eye contact with me, and it was honestly terrifying, I'm not gonna lie. All I can hope for is that he and Lilo break up, and he seriously fixes his issues. 3. Hello, my wonderful, lovely friends. Woodsy here. I haven't posted anything in a very long time, mostly because I had a baby and she takes up a lot of my time. But also because I'm currently lacking beards in my life, which I love. Now, I do have more stories to tell, that I have not yet told. Some because it was a long time ago and the only proof I have is in Dutch. Some because the person I would talk about actually scares me and might come murder me. But this one, my run-in with an actual bona fide, scary nice guy, has had more than enough time to simmer, and it's time to serve it up for you. Now, before I get to the grit of it, I want to do what I do best and start this story with the desecration of a wonderful speech from the Lord of the Rings. My dear neckbeards and nice guys, beardos and stink goblins, legbeards, nice girls, pick-me's, incels, crotch goblins, and creeps. Today isn't my birthday, but I'm 31. First of all, 31 years is far too short a time to live among such excellent and admirable creatures. I don't know half of you half as well as I would like, and I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve. Secondly, to celebrate, it is not my birthday, I should say not our birthday, for it is, of course, also not the birthday of the fabled and fabulous Redditors. They came of age quite some time ago and get to read this story today. Together we score some rancidly terrible stories. Your numbers were chosen to fit this remarkable total. Gross, if I may use the expression. I wish to make an announcement. I regret to announce that, though, as I said, 31 years is far too short a time to spend among you, this is the end. I am going, I am leaving now. Don't follow me, stay away, about 50 feet would be nice. Goodbye, neckbeards. Alright, into the thick of it. This story begins when I was 17 years old. A wee little girl who didn't know much of the world and just transferred to a new school. I got a message on Facebook one day from a guy claiming to have gone to my school a few years back and asking me if a certain girl still went to that school. I was polite and told him that I didn't know. I did know, but the guy's wording seemed a bit off. At school, I asked about the guy to a classmate who knew the girl he had asked about, and she told me. Let's call him Gollum, you'll see why later, never went to our school. He had, however, shown up from time to time at the school gates to stalk the girl in question. Let's pause here for a moment to tell you, yes, I am an idiot, and yes, I should have blocked him immediately. But as those who've read my previous stories know, the growing of a spine is a fairly new occurrence. Anywho, I was glad I hadn't told the guy I knew the girl, but I didn't stop talking to him. Mostly because I just came to a new school, didn't know anyone, and needed someone to talk to. We talked for a while, off and on during the following weeks, but everything he said rubbed me the wrong way. He started telling me how pretty I was, to which I told him I was gay. I'm not, but he didn't need to know that. I thought that would be the end of the flirting, but it wasn't. He also kept attacking me on everything I said, as if he was trying to start a fight. Eventually I had enough, and I removed him as a friend from Facebook. I thought that meant he couldn't message me. He could. I know that now, but this was a long time ago, hence the following rant ensued. As the original text is in Dutch, I will put the translation down here. F your stupid art school reject without talent who now wants to get a worthless diploma in criminology. What a joke. Better stick to women because I'm the reason why you hate penises. I want to be that reason because I will F you into a wheelchair, bimbo. And it's you, not your, lawyer dumb. No, just dyslexic, I said. You ballsack bumblebee. It sounds better in Dutch, I promise. You know, when I'm looking at your profile picture, I can't say for sure if you're a human or a troll. You can't handle me. Why don't you just block me before I lay down at your feet, bitch? Followed by a winky face. It's the winky face that really does it for me. Wow. I don't know what to say to this. Am I supposed to have a higher opinion of you now? You're already handicapped. Damn, the university must really be lowering the bar. Then he sent me some link I couldn't open, telling me it reminds him of me. I don't know what you sent me, I can't open it, but it probably wasn't all that nice. I didn't know I would hurt you so much with this, referring to the friend removal, and I'm sorry. No, bad me, bad. But I was so done with your commentary. Nah, you seriously think that, ho-ho? I give a rat's butt? For all I care, you could walk off the side of the earth and shoot your own brains out of your head. I could care less. And I'm not even surprised you did that, because you're one of the ugliest people I've ever seen. Even Smeagol from Lord of the Rings is better looking and has more charm. The only thing you're good for is drinking my seed and laying at my feet. Reality check. Screw off now, bimbo. Then I blocked him. I also reported him to Facebook. His Gollum fetish aside, the man did scare me, and for a while I feared he would come look for me, as my school was not that big, and he had come to it before in search of a different girl. Luckily, the guy was all talk. A few years later, I showed the text to a friend. His account had been removed, but I remembered his name. I looked him up on Facebook, and lo and behold, he had a brand new account, a very public, very open account. The very first post I found on it was him ranting about a girl that broke up with him, and him wishing she would get assaulted. He said a lot of nasty things, and so did his friends. So I reported him to Facebook, again, because, yes, I'm petty, and he's a creep, and yes, he got his account removed again. I don't remember his name anymore. I'm amazed I even found the texts. But here we are, 14 years later. I wonder if he ever got to give his precious ring to the Gollum of his dreams. Thanks for reading my nonsense, my dears. I hope you cringed as hard as I did, both at his and my old spineless self. I won't be apologizing to you guys because I'm dyslexic, you ball-sack bumblebees. Love you. Woodsy out. 4. And so we dig into my beard-laden past. One of the biggest beards in my life was attached to me in my early 20s. I'm a 36-year-old woman now. Was a weird one growing up. I had been playing D&D and computer games with my father since before my teens. During the time I commingled with the beard, Joe, male 40s or 50s, I was living in a northwestern state and managed to find a game shop literal blocks away from my apartment. Here I started walking over to play in the assorted night events like Adventure Leave, Board Game Nights, Magic the Gathering Fridays, and the rare D&D game. It was a lot of fun, but the craving began to gnaw at me. I wanted a campaign that I could sink my teeth into and grow, develop a character. Enter Joe. I had, of course, seen him in the shop during assorted events. He was very hard to miss, corpulent and notably aromatic. He seemed like a really nice guy with unfortunate physical attributes. The beard itself was thick and untamed, and he always dresses in slop pants or shorts and a foot-stained t-shirt that had holes and a musty odor. His personality was jovial, and he acted as a kind and generous person, and took me in when it came to Magic the Gathering and D&D. In the beginning, things were great. I would walk down to the card store with my decks. I had 3 that I was playing around with me at the time. For those with interest, one was blue-green counters, another was black-white angels, and the third was a green-white population deck. He would spend hours with me, going over the decks and tweaking my cards, teaching me how to get a realistic count of land versus cards. Y'all know the struggle can be real. As of this time, Joe acted as more of a mentor than anything, and to me, things were awesome. I have almost no social acuity, so this was fantastic. It was the first time I had a social life in a couple of years. I wish I had just left things there, enjoying the separation from Joe. And the game shop was there for me to visit, but I fluffed up. I accepted the invitation to go to his house for more in-depth Magic the Gathering lessons and trades, and to help start a D&D 2nd edition game. Suddenly, I went from meeting Joe at defined intervals to being at his home for what seemed like every day. He has 2 daughters from 2 different relationships, and suddenly I was meeting them and their moms when the girls would be brought by for his time. We began D&D, and I started with a fun character named Widget Berry Slicer, the gnomish rogue. I learned very quickly that Joe was used to playing Iron Man, and he was a very punitive GM, and she was basically killed by the 2nd session because of a few rolls and a lot of GM's decisions. Okay, cool, so I make a healer. Meet Carly Sage, the druid. She did not get murdered in the 2nd game. Whew, alright. So now we have a weekly D&D game in addition to Magic the Gathering Friday and pre-release events, etc. My social life started to orbit around the game shop, and by extension, Joe. Things were going really well. We began to explore in the D&D world. Soon Joe decided that he would start cooking dinner for D&D, and the players just needed to put in $5 to eat. This was a great deal at first. Slowly, Joe began to ask me to pick up stuff on the way to his house to cook for the dinner. Keep in mind, I still had to pay the $5 to eat it, after purchasing the ingredients. Okay, crappy, but eh. Fast forward about month 4. I am now usually picking up ingredients on the way to his house, and he has me doing the cooking now and loading up the car. We would carpool to the game shop, and not gonna lie, those trips were rough. The car was always dirty with food wrappers, and his personal body scent was so very thick. Once at the shop, I would be the one to unload the car and set him up throne style at the table because that's what he had trained. Not sure that's the best word. I'd give him the $5 to eat, then set up the food I had purchased and cooked. We would play, and then I'd go back to his house, about a 30-minute drive, and unload the car before I drove back home, passing the game shop to get there. Some nights he would have me stay the night. Joe had some pretty severe health issues that I won't go into because they are not mine to share. He would have me assist him with medical stuff that he had difficulty with. It was unpleasant because of the odor and having to touch things. By this point, I'd conned myself into feeling that this was just normal, and he eased into taking more liberties with my person. Things were being pushed into a very NSFW direction. I was very impressionable and in deep dislike with myself, and a major depressive order diagnosed. For all intents and purposes, I was becoming a waifu. A few more months pass, and with my meds, I'm finally starting to realize this was actually not okay. It took me a long time to work up the tiny bit of backbone I could muster and let him know that I was starting to feel taken advantage of. Not only was I purchasing everything and doing the cooking, and then paying him for the privilege of eating it, he informed me that it was not his fault about this, and that I had started taking over the cooking, so he left it alone. He said he had to charge me so that the others in the group found it to be fair. I was told I was being high-strung and dramatic. I backed down. He must be right. He was older, wiser, and he had been so kind in offering his help on anything game-related. So I backed down and apologized for being rude, and we maintained the status quo. I stayed in that situationship for almost another year. I did manage to ease away from the NSFW material, but I was still cooking and paying, making card trades for Magic the Gathering, watching the kids when they were over, etc. I finally escaped the Neckbeard nest in 2012, and have grown a little emotionally. I am still very oblivious, but my now girlfriend, 36 female now, Wolfie, helps me to navigate those waves. I moved away and started fresh, still trying to nurture and grow a backbone, but so far I have not had much luck. Maybe I have a black thumb. 5. A long time ago, I sent in a story to Mr. Freezer about this Jesus lady that tried to hit on me using Marilyn Manson as a pickup line. This time I will bring you the story of when I dated a legbeard. Well before that term, and before I knew what I was getting myself into. At what age do you feel it is the right time to have a girl or boyfriend? Well, at the ripe age of 3rd grade in America. Seriously, don't recall my age at this point. How old am I again? Anyway, there was this girl I liked, and it turned out she liked me too. The teachers kept calling her special. I had no idea what they meant, but I wanted to be special as well. Turns out they were saying she was autistic, and I became academically talented in math. But we both had a bond with being special together. It kinda worked out, but she became obsessed with me real quick. There was this game we played called Heads Down, Thumbs Up, or 7-Up, depending on where you're from. You would have 3 people that's it, and everyone would put their heads down and their eyes closed and their thumb up. Each person that is it walks around and pushes one thumb down and walks back to the front of the class. When the it players return, the 3 that were chosen stand up and try to guess who they picked. If either I or my girlfriend, we'll call her Donuts for now, inside joke, were picked, we would pick each other, constantly. The teacher told me to pick someone else eventually, so I told the other guy to pick her, and watch her guess it was me. Sure enough, everyone thought I picked her. And when she found out I didn't, she got mad. However, like any relation in elementary school, it didn't last past the summer. However, Donuts didn't forget about me. The next year, in order to get my attention, well, I think so anyways, she was saying that she was dating Michael Jordan. Oh man, this was just the start of the crazy that happened. She claimed that she could control the weather, but refused to make snow fall to get school cancelled. She claimed to be related to Bill Clinton and so much more. However, it's middle school that she went off the deep end. The word that she was in the same middle school as me drifted to me by some people I didn't know. However, they knew that I would be interested in hearing the latest gossip about Donuts. The reason why has been a little shaky to me. I didn't know them, and I don't want to say that she was still thinking about me, but it did turn out she wanted to date me still. There wasn't much about me. I'm not good-looking, buff, or even had a rich family. Hell, the only time we spent together was at school. So I found her, wasn't hard. Apparently we had the same gym class. I walked up to her and said, "So I hear you are immortal, is that true?" "Shh," she hissed, as she grabbed my arm and pulled me to the side. "Don't tell people or they will come to school with a sword and cut my head off." Ah, so she's playing that she's from Highlander. "Don't worry, I won't tell," I assured her. "I'm a dragon after all, so I would be at risk too," I say. This apparently would be the worst thing I could do, for you see, it turns out that she believed she was in fact immortal, and that kids would bring a sword to school to kill her. But now she thought I was a dragon, and unbeknownst to me, she was talking about how I was a dragon. To make a longer story short, We started to have an argument about this. I kept trying to tell her that she isn't immortal and no one cares. So I dragged her to a table of kids and told them, guys, she isn't immortal. They all laughed. I was wrong. This was the worst thing to do. The next day I was absent. So the day after that, a kid told me what happened. Dude, you won't believe this, your girl, Donuts, she was suspended yesterday. I was shocked. What happened? After you told that table she was immortal, they went and told their friends and then their friends. Well, to protect herself, Donut brought a knife to school. She was suspended for a week after this. When she returned to school, I got the real story. She brought the knife not because of the immortal thing, but to protect herself because of this group of girls unrelated to the scenario had threatened her. Fast forward a few years, I was on a city bus heading home from my college class when I see this woman get on with a stroller. I recognized her to be Donuts, I think. I stayed back and decided not to engage with her in case she wasn't Donuts. However, sure enough, another woman gets on and says, "Oh hey Donuts, long time." Oh, so this was her. I might as well say hi. I got up and made my way to her when I hear this conversation. "Is that a baby you have there, Donuts?" She beamed. "Yes, he is," she said happily. Yep, it's Donuts, I remember that voice. She picked up the child from the stroller. Well, at least a doll of one. "What's his name?" the stranger asked, unfazed by the doll in place of a child. Donuts tells her my name. I sat down near them, just out of sight. "Oh, what's the last name?" Sure enough, she gave her my last name. "He's named after his dad," she said happily. I pulled the hood of my coat over my face. You see, we haven't talked since middle school. Man, that was creepy. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild, episode 81. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. Before you go, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And do support me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. Okay, no more business today, so let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day. Today's question is... frustrating repairs. Is there anything you've come across, either recently or in the past, where you've been told, oh, it's just a quick 10-minute job, but not for you? The reason I ask that is because the rear axle on my bike broke recently. I think I mentioned that in the previous video, and I'm not having a lot of luck in repairing it. I think I've got the correct type of bearings, although I'm going to have to buy more because one of them got completely destroyed in the process. It's a little cup with bearings in it, so I'm going to have to get more of those, get better grease, but I'm still not sure that it's correct. I'm still not sure I have everything I need to repair it. What came out of it was actually loose bearings, but one of the fittings got lost when it got broke. As I mentioned previously, the whole thing, just by the time I got the bike home, because, you know, it was, thankfully I was heading home at the time when it broke, everything was completely gone. There was just a few bearings left in the axle, but I was lucky I was able to wheel it most of the way home before that happened. So I'm now trying to figure out what parts I need to get the damn thing working again, because it's how I get places. And it's more convenient than walking and much cheaper than taxis, at least for getting around the local town. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. This one will have been a while ago, actually. And this one comes from Neckbeards in the Wild, episode 80. And I think this was about the next big purchase you're planning to make. Today's answer comes from Hillary Bingham. Next big purchase is going to be a couple of tattoos, one in honor of my sister-in-law who passed last year. Taking my time to make sure I get the right one. Well, I hope that worked out for you, Hillary, if you've done it in the last 6 months. And if not, that it does work out when you come to do it. Thank you very much for your answer. And with that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.